BRICS versus G7, who will lead the global economy? So the world economy feels like it's shifting. On one side, you have the G7, you have the established powers, and they are the US, UK, you have Japan, Germany, France, Italy, and Canada. On the other side, you have BRICS. You have Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Now expanding to include some countries like Saudi Arabia and Egypt. The question is, who will really shape the global economy in the decades to come between the BRICS versus the G7? So hi, my name is Dide Adewale and welcome to my YouTube channel where we explore economics and international relations and how they collide to shape the world. So today I am diving into BRICS versus G7, the clash of old power and rising power, and what it means for trade, finance, and global politics. The G7, let's talk about the old guard. So the G7 emerged in the 1970s, a club of advanced industrial democracies. Together, they set the rules for global finance, trade, and governance. They still control key institutions still now, like the IMF, the World Bank, and to a large extent, the global financial system, which is heavily dollar dominated. Also, the G7 countries represent 30% of global GDP, yeah, but their share is shrinking as emerging economies also grow faster. So this is where the BRICS come in as the challengers. So BRICS was created in 2000 as a voice for emerging economies. What makes it powerful is scale. So together, BRICS accounts for over 40% of the world's population. And depending on how you measure it, PPP versus nominal GDP, depending on how you see it, about the same share, of the global economy output of the G7. So there's a real strong competition going between the two groups. So China and India are the real engines here. They're fast growing, they have massive markets, and increasingly influential in trade. Recently, BRICS expanded and they're inviting countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Egypt, and Argentina, and it's signaling its ambition to be more than just a talk shop. So now, how the economies are clashing. Let's look at how economics meets politics here. So we will take currency and trade, for example. The G7 dominates with the dollar and euro, and the BRICS is talking about dollarization, that is trade in local currencies and even a potential shared currency. But can they really dethrone the dollar? Let's look at institutions. The G7 countries, IMF and World Bank. BRICS launched the New Development Bank as an alternative, but it's still small compared to the Western institutions. So you see the IMF and the World Bank versus development banks, but yeah, the Western people still control. So geopolitics, let's look at that example. The G7 aligns politically. Liberal democracies with relatively shared values, while BRICS is diverse. They have different types of systems of governments. India, for example, is democratic, China authoritarian, Russia with its resource, richness, and developing nations in Africa and Latin America. And this actually makes it very hard for all the BRICS nations to coordinate themselves. So what does this mean for the future? This isn't a simple competition. It's about balance of influence. If you're there thinking maybe, the G7 versus the BRICS, one day the BRICS will overtake the G7, we never know. But this is what it is. It's a simple competition and it's about the balance of influence. So G7 will remain powerful because of technology, finance and military dominance. Very key. But BRICS offers that developing world alternative voice that everyone has been crying for in geopolitics, especially on trade, infrastructure, and energy. So if BRICS continues to expand, it could reshape how the global south negotiates with the west, which is a very welcome development. But divisions inside BRICS, which is something, that needs to be thoroughly looked into, especially between China and India, may limit its power. But the future may not be G7 or BRICS. It could rather be a multipolar world where power is shared more widely and there's some balance of influence. Okay, so who will lead the global economy, BRICS or G7? How do we answer that question? I would say both, but in different ways. G7 will still hold its financial crown. BRICS has the population, the growth, and the resources. I think together they reflect a world moving away from Western dominance but towards something more balanced and more contested. So what do you think? Can BRICS rival the G7, or is it still too divided? Especially the BRICS nation. Are they coordinating better? Let me know what you think. You can drop that in the comment sections, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more weekly insights as I continue to break down how economics and politics shape our world. See you next time.